It's Sunday morning, June 26, 1994, just after dawn. In a quiet suburb in South Florida, a 40-something well-dressed man with shaggy hair stands over a table in a tile-floored dining room. He's laughing and flirting with two young women. They're sharing a bottle of wine. The man floats around the house, puts on music, checks out his hair as he passes by a mirrored wall in the living room. He comes up behind one of the women as she's sitting in a chair and tips her way back playfully, then puts her upright and gives her a long hug. He dons a hat and tips it to the other woman with a smile, then places it on her head. This little party looks like it could go on for a while. Then an intruder bursts through an unlocked sliding glass door. He has a machine gun. Without hesitating, he lifts it over his head and slams the butt end of it into the man's face, knocking him to the ground. An accomplice comes through the same door, carrying something that looks like a long stick. They turn their attention to the women, and the scene turns brutally violent. What they don't know is that every step they take, every blow, every bullet fired, is being caught on tape. From the Sun Sentinel and SouthFlorida.com, in association with Wondery, this is Felonious Florida, the podcast that leads you into the dark side of the Sunshine State. I'm Lisa Arthur, and this is the story of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. Episode 1, The Executions. Palm Beach County, Florida. A deputy sheriff on his regular patrol spots thick black smoke billowing over the Everglades. He drives toward Belglade, a remote sugarcaning town in the far west of the county. Wildfires are common out here, and it hasn't rained in days. But as he approaches the location of the smoke, it's not a wildfire the deputy finds. It's a burning car. A luxury black Mercedes SL convertible on the side of the road, fully engulfed in flames. There's nobody inside. "7 hours earlier and 70 miles to the south, two young women are looking to cap off a night out. There's a popular after-hours nightclub near Hollywood, Florida called Casey's Nickelodeon, and they're late-night regulars. Marie Rogers and Sharon Anderson pull into the parking lot of Casey's around 3:30 Sunday morning. They always arrive after the 2 a.m. last call at other bars in the area. As usual, Casey's is crowded, and Marie and Sharon make their way to the bar. That's where they run into Butch Casey, the flashy manager and former owner of the club. His real name is Casimir Sukarski Jr. He just prefers Butch, and he looks like somebody named Butch. The 48-year-old is something of a local celebrity in the South Florida bar scene, and he fancies the role. Butch is known as the party king, and a ladies' man, a womanizer some would say. He is larger than life, and women love him. His roguish good looks, a dazzling smile, shaggy hair. He favors aviator sunglasses and silk scarves, and he can actually pull them off. He wore a chunky silver chain around his neck and a diamond-encrusted pendant of the Casey's Nickelodeon logo. On one wrist was a Cartier watch, on the other, a bracelet with Butch spelled out in diamond-studded letters. Butch is well known for carrying two things, a chrome-plated pistol under his jacket and wads of cash in his boots. He also has a penchant for Mercedes-Benzes. Butch is working the crowd when Marie and Sharon arrive, and he spots them as they move through the bar. It was hard not to. They are the kind of beautiful that draws stares when they walk into a room. Both are 25 years old, slender with fine features and dramatic cheekbones. They move gracefully. And they're ambitious. They're just starting to break into South Florida's burgeoning fashion, modeling, and entertainment scene. Sharon had dedicated the years after high school to preparing for the entertainment career she dreamed of, sculpting her body, taking acting and dancing classes. She had scored roles in several music videos shot in South Beach. One of them was rapper Heavy D's Girls They Love Me. Marie had studied fashion design and dreamed of making it big in the South Beach fashion industry. She had coordinated fashion showcases around South Florida. She juggled her budding career with being the single mother of a toddler. Butch Casey makes his way over to Marie and Sharon, and the three spend some time talking. He flirts with them, has a plate of oysters Rockefeller sent over, on the house. As dawn starts to break and the club is closing down, Butch invites the two women back to his house in the quiet suburb of Miramar, a few miles away. They arrive shortly after 6:30, right around sunrise, and Butch gives them a tour of the place. He's in fine form tonight, entertaining his guests attentively. The impromptu little party goes on. Within an hour, all three are dead, brutalized and shot in their heads at close range. What happened over that hour at Butch Casey's house is hardly a mystery. In fact, we know second-by-second detail about the movements of Butch Casey and the others who were there. It's what makes this case, now known as the Casey's Nickelodeon murders, so remarkable. Police marveled at what they called the single most significant piece of evidence they'd ever seen in an investigation. Butch Casey's home was wired with security cameras. They captured everything. That seems rather unremarkable today when video records so much of our lives. But in 1994, such home technology was rare. Here's Batinto Batts, a former reporter for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, who covered the murders.
I was a police reporter for 3 years, so I've seen a lot of murder and death after the fact. But to actually see it unfold and to see it when it's happening, and this is not TV, this is not something dramatized, this is real world. It's breathtaking and it's stunning.
One camera was hidden above the table where the three were partying. It recorded every moment of their violent killings, and it recorded who killed them. They were recognized by several people who were shown photos grabbed from the videotape. One, they said, resembled Pablo Ibar, a 22-year-old who was living in Hollywood, Florida in a flop house that was known on the street for drug dealing, cell phone and credit card fraud, and its gun-toting tenants. He had no criminal record, but was on a downward spiral after returning from California, where he spent a semester playing football for a community college. The other man fingered on the video was Seth Penalver, a 21-year-old middle school dropout who had been on his own and essentially homeless by age 15. Seth had done 3 months in county jail for driving by a rival's house and shooting into it. He also had spent 6 months in state prison in a case involving a stolen gold chain. It seemed like the incriminating video would make this an open and shut case. But a jury ultimately decided Seth Penalver was not involved in the murders. In fact, over the 23 years since the killings and discovery of the video, there have been 4 trials, 2 convictions, a hung jury, 2 death sentences, and 2 successful appeals. Today, early in 2018, nobody stands convicted of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. The Sun-Sentinel reporter Batts.
This is a case that just simply will not go away.
The twists and turns of the investigation of the Casey's Nickelodeon murders and the attempts to prosecute Pablo Ibar and Seth Penalver are dizzying. The case files are massive. Pablo Ibar has insisted since his arrest in 1994 that he didn't kill anybody. His conviction was overturned on appeal in 2016, but not before he spent 16 years on death row for the triple murder. This spring, he'll face yet another jury that will decide his fate. His wife, Tanya, has never wavered in her support.
I'm happy because we're here, but there is that fear there because no matter what, those people have to make that decision. I just hope whoever those 12 people are able to see the truth. But again, it's 12 people that our lives lay in their hands once again. And again, it will probably be the last time.
Seth Penalver spent 18 years in prison, including 6 on death row. But after a third trial in 2012, a Florida jury acquitted him and set him free. There has been no justice for the families of Butch Casey, Sharon Anderson, and Marie Rogers. For Marie's mother, Margaret Edwards, the years of her life this case has consumed seem surreal.
Sometimes I think this is like I'm in the twilight zone. You ever feel like you go through something and you see little things happen and you say, is this for real?
So why was this such a difficult case? Let's go back to 1994. The deputy in Palm Beach County has just encountered the burning Mercedes convertible on a remote road in the Everglades. After the fire is out, investigators move in. They discover the car belongs to Butch Casey, the well-known South Florida bar owner. Police in Miramar, 70 miles south, head to Butch's house on East Shore Road. An officer knocks on the front door, but nobody answers. He writes a note on the back of his business card, sticks it in the door, and leaves. Around the same time, a phone rings in Birmingham, Alabama, where Sharon Anderson's sister, Deborah Bowie, lives. It's her mother calling, from Miami. Sharon hadn't come home Saturday night, she tells Deborah. She hasn't returned pages either. Deborah is panicked. It was out of character for Sharon to disappear without getting in touch with anybody.
There would be many times where she didn't come home. She would crash at a friend's house, or she had a really good friend who lived in Broward, and so, but she would always call and say, hey, I'm staying at Valerie's, I'm staying at, so-and-so's house, and I'll be back in a couple of days. So it wasn't like we didn't know where she was. So when my mom called me on that weekend, like immediately, I remember feeling very angry because I was, 2 weeks away from having the baby, and that's just not the call that I wanted to get. I was angry because my mom said, hey, Sharon did not come home and we're supposed to go to the movies today to see The Lion King. My sister would never do that. Never. So the minute she said that, like in my spirit, I knew something was wrong, but I mean, who could ever guess? So I just started paging her, 911, 911, no answer. And so this went on this was at this point, my mom called me really early on Sunday. By Sunday afternoon, I was almost in a full-scale panic. My then husband, we all knew something wasn't right, but no one would really say anything. It was sort of, well, let's just keep calling and, see if we can kind of track her last steps. Since Mom, who was she with? Well, she was with Marie. Did you call Marie's mother? And finally, somewhere around dinner time, my mom said, well, the car is in my name. Do you think she would be upset if I reported the car stolen? And I said, at this point, I really don't care if she's mad. I mean, something's wrong.
Back in Florida, Margaret Edwards paces around her Pembroke Park home. She had last seen her daughter, Marie Rogers, Saturday night when Sharon had come to pick her up. When she realizes Marie hadn't come home, Margaret is struck with a sense of dread. Marie lives there with her 2.5-year-old daughter and would never stay away for that long without calling. As the hours tick by, her anxiety gets worse.
That is how she was brought up. That is how I was able to call the police in not even in 24 hours, because it's not going to happen because she would be home. And that is how the whole thing started. So when you bring up your child a certain way, when something look out of the ordinary, you know that something is wrong because you feel it in your stomach. And I said something is definitely wrong because she did not come home. And when I was calling, the phone just kept ringing. So when I called the cop, they called the police, and they said, no, she's 25. I mean, I said, no, she's going to come home. So then he came and he said, okay, I'm going to check around certain places. He'll come back and let me know. Nobody called me back. Nobody came.
So Margaret calls the police to report her daughter missing. She gives a photo of Marie to Deputy Christopher Schwab from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. She also gives him the license plate number of Sharon's car. She also mentions Casey's Nickelodeon. The nightclub is just a half a mile from Marie's house, so Deputy Schwab heads over. He shows the photo of Marie to the night manager, Ray Nixon. Yes, Ray tells the deputy, Marie had been there with Sharon on Saturday night. They left with Butch Casey around dawn on Sunday, nearly 20 hours earlier. Ray thinks it's entirely possible things are fine, that Butch and his two companions were maybe having an extended party. But one thing bothers him. He had been trying to reach Butch all day Sunday, but kept getting a busy signal. But Butch had call waiting, so a busy signal was odd. He always clicked over when a new call came in. The missing women, the busy signal from Butch's line. Something is wrong. So Deputy Schwab follows Ray to Butch's house in Miramar. They arrive around 2 a.m. Monday. The lights are on, music is playing. Ray pounds on the front door, but nobody answers, and the phone is still busy. Eventually, Deputy Schwab walks around back. He sees a sliding glass door and peers in. There's blood smears on the couch. He looks closer, then sees the bodies. Sharon Anderson is lying face down on the dining room floor. Her feet are bound in phone cord. She has been shot twice in the back of her neck. Marie Rogers is also face down, and shot in the same spot. Butch Casey is lying face up, shot once in his back and once in the front of his neck. He has cuts and bruises all over his face. His teeth have been knocked out of his head.
He was known as Butch Casey to his friends. Around 2:30 this morning, Casimir Sukarowski was found murdered in his Miramar home along with two other people, Marie Rogers of Hollywood and Sharon Anderson of Miami. He was best known as the owner of Casey's Nickelodeon, a popular restaurant and bar on Hallandale Beach Boulevard. It was, however, closed down by police for a time in 1983 because of drug activity. Tonight, it's closed again, shut down earlier in the day when news of his murder reached his employees.
By daybreak, Butch's house is a full-on crime scene. Cops and news crews are crawling all over the place. Neighbors are out in the street trying to get a glimpse of what's going on behind the yellow crime scene tape. At Marie's house, Margaret Edwards wakes up Monday morning after a brief sleep. Still no sign of her daughter, and she hasn't heard from Deputy Schwab. Margaret turns on the TV, which is reporting the news of a triple murder. 3 people found dead inside a home in Miramar. Margaret just knew one of them was Marie.
I saw it on the news when I woke up the following morning. I cannot explain it to you, but when they said 3 people found dead, I just know. Before it was even confirmed, I know my daughter was dead.
On the day the bodies of Butch Casey, Marie Rogers, and Sharon Anderson are found, Batinto Batts, the Sun-Sentinel reporter, spends several hours knocking on doors in Butch Casey's neighborhood.
I went to the neighborhood in Miramar where Butch Casey or Casimir Sukarowski lived, and it was a pretty nondescript neighborhood. It wasn't anything elaborate, but his house was just different than the others and stood out because of the landscaping.
Butch's neighbors are on edge. 3 people have been killed on their quiet middle-class street, but they aren't eager to talk to reporters about what they might have seen or heard.
But what they were able to tell me is a little bit about, Butch Casey. I didn't get the impression that people didn't like him, but it was just that, he was sort of different than everybody else. It seemed like a type of place where everybody mostly kept to themselves and didn't have a lot of interaction. But he was different in the sense that he was obviously the one resident of that neighborhood who seemed to be pretty popular and seemed to entertain guests more than others.
While reporters scour for information and neighbors fret and speculate outside, inside the home of Butch Casey, cops are about to make the stunning discovery that made this case famous. Police are searching Butch Casey's home, the scene of the violent triple murders. They open a cabinet in his bedroom and discover a stash of videotapes. Lots of them, as many as 200. They're tapes of Butch having sex with women. They're shot from above, somewhere over his bed. A surveillance camera is discovered on a high shelf across from the bed. It was hidden behind a teddy bear and a potted plant. On another high shelf in the living room, police find a souvenir movie director's clapperboard. An officer checks behind it and finds another camera. There's a wire attached to it, and he follows it to a VCR. Detectives play the tape and discover that Butch had turned on the surveillance system as he left for work on Saturday night. For hours, the cameras recorded nothing but an empty house. Then the sun came up, and Butch walks into the house with Sharon Anderson and Marie Rogers at his side. The tape captures their after-hours party. The officers watch stunned as the crime plays out before them. For this podcast, the South Florida Sun-Sentinel requested interviews with the police and prosecutors who worked the murders in 1994 to talk about the video. But because the case is set to go back to trial this year, all of our requests were declined or went unanswered. Craig Scarlett was one of the lead officers on the scene that morning. He's on the witness list for Ibar's upcoming trial, so he wouldn't talk. But in 2014, he spoke with CNN for their show Death Row Stories about the discovery of the videotape.
I was outside. They were like, come here, you got to see this. And took the tape, popped it into the TV, and it starts up. And there's Butch Casey walking around the night before, getting ready to go to work. We start fast forwarding it. And we go, we're going to watch this crime unfold on video. And it did, right in front of us. It was really amazing because, back in 1994, not many people were hooking their houses up with all kinds of video, as gruesome as it was. The video was probably the most significant piece of evidence I've ever seen in a case.
The video was shot with 1994 technology, so it's not exactly high definition. In fact, the black and white picture is grainy and the focus is soft, and there's no sound. But what is happening is clear enough, and it's chilling. Sharon and Marie are sitting at the dining room table, and Butch is standing, taking a sip from a glass. A man walks into the house through the sliding glass door leading from the backyard. He's wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses that obscure his face. He's carrying a Tech 9 semi-automatic machine gun. He points it at Butch, and Butch raises his hands into the air. A second intruder walks through the door. Sharon Anderson jumps out of her chair and runs into a nearby bedroom. The second man is wearing a shirt wrapped around his head to hide his face, and he's carrying a large stick. He chases Sharon into the bedroom. The intruder with the machine gun raises it above his head and slams the butt end of it into Butch's face. Butch falls to the floor. Marie is pushed over in her chair. She falls to the floor, hitting her head against the wall on the way down. The intruder kneels over Butch and begins hitting him across the face with the barrel of the machine gun. He appears to be yelling something at Butch, maybe asking him questions. The second intruder emerges from the bedroom. He's not carrying the stick anymore. Instead, he has a handgun. Butch Casey's own chrome-plated pistol, which Butch took out of its holster when he got home and placed in his bedroom. The intruder begins to ransack the house. It's clear he's looking for something. As he moves around the dining and kitchen areas, he can be seen picking things up and sticking them in his pockets. At one point, both men search Butch's pockets, and then one of them removes Butch's boots. He finds something in them and appears to stick it in his pockets. Probably money. Remember, Butch was known to always carry wads of cash in his boots. And when his body was discovered, Butch was missing a sock that was never found. Here's bar manager Peter Bednarz explaining the thing about Butch Casey and his boots to Miramar Police Detective Paul Manzella in a statement after the killings.
There's money either in his socks or in the portion of his boots, on the top part, on the side or on the top part of his boots.
Well, at any time, how much would he have on a person?
Well, I've heard stories of there have been times that he had like $15,000, $16,000 on him in his boots or on his person. I remember the day that we went up to the auto toy store when he purchased his 300 SL. He had $20,000 in his boots as a down payment for the car.
After searching Butch's boots, the second intruder goes back into the bedroom and comes out with Sharon Anderson. She's hopping. Her feet have been bound with phone cords. Butch Casey fights back as the first intruder kneels over him. He grabs the barrel of the machine gun and tries to wrestle it away. The second intruder dashes over, and he shoots Butch Casey in the back with his own pistol. The shooter goes back to searching the house. Then he closes the sliding glass door and walks over to where Sharon Anderson is lying. He takes the pistol out of his waistband. He points it down at her. Then he puts it back in his waistband. A few seconds later, he takes it out again and aims. This time, a flash of fire spits out of the muzzle as he shoots her. He walks over to Marie Rogers and fires. Investigators will discover later that he missed. She lies there playing dead for a few minutes. Then the first intruder decides it's his turn. He walks over to Butch Casey and places the machine gun against his neck and shoots. Butch's body jerks. He walks over to Sharon Anderson, places the muzzle against her neck and pulls the trigger. Her body jerks. Marie Rogers is still playing dead, but not for long. The intruder walks to her, places the gun against her neck, and shoots her dead. 22 minutes have gone by, and the killings are over. But the video has one more stunning revelation. As the two killers leave the house, the video shows one removing the shirt covering his head, and he exposes his face to the hidden security camera. They have him on tape. For the next month, investigators will study that image and the violent 22-minute ordeal over and over again. They keep the video a secret from the public and enlist the help of the FBI and NASA to enhance the image. It's remarkable evidence, especially for 1994. They know what happened, but they don't know why or who the killers are. Was this a home invasion robbery gone wrong? Were the killers looking for something specific as they ransacked the house? Was Butch Casey the target of a hit by people he owed money to? On the next episode of Felonious Florida, the Casey's Nickelodeon murders. The cops believe they have their answers after another huge break, one almost as big as the videotape. But first, they chase tips involving the mob and public theories about a connection to a double murder that happened days earlier and led to the trial of the century. Thanks for listening to this episode of Felonious Florida. If you're enjoying the podcast, please rate us on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about our show. It's available at feloniousflorida.com, Apple Podcasts, Wondery.com, or your favorite podcast platform. You can go online to see photographs, video, and read more about the cases we're featuring at feloniousflorida.com. And be sure to like us on Facebook. Felonious Florida is produced by David Schutz, Lisa Arthur, and Juan Ortega. The Casey's Nickelodeon Murders is reported and written by your host, me, Lisa Arthur. Editing by David Schutz and Randy Rogoski. Sound engineering and production by Cindy Choi and Sean Pitts. The Felonious Florida team includes Danny Sanchez, Dana Banker, and David Selig. Hi, this is Lisa Arthur. If you'd like to support more journalism like this, you can help by joining the Sun Sentinel, South Florida's leading source for news, information, and entertainment. Visit sunsentinel.com/join.